One of the coolest things about Pokemon Legends Arceus is how they took characters from the present day Pokemon franchise and tied them to these ancestor characters from the Hisui region of past. And I thought it'd be fun to break down all of the relationships and ancestors in Pokemon Legends Arceus. So let's dive in. Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka A-Drive. I'm bringing you guys a brand new video today. And today we're gonna be taking a look at all of the ancestors in Pokemon Legends Arceus. And some of these are pretty crazy and you would never really think of them at first glance. Like obviously there's some pretty straightforward ones, but a couple of them you had to dig a little bit and do a little research on, and I thought that they were pretty neat. So I hope you guys enjoy this type of video. If you do, be sure to like the video down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new so you don't miss out on our epic Pokemon Legends Arceus content. Without further ado, let's dive in and talk about all the different characters in Legends Arceus and how they relate to the ancestors of the future and past and all these crazy timelines we got going on. So I think you have to start with the main character, right? The protagonist of the game, Ray and Akari, and it's very clear that these are related to Lucas and Dawn, right? I mean, Lucas and Dawn, Ray and Akari, they look so similar, so depending on which protagonist you choose in the game, there's some sort of tie in there. Whether they're ancestors or whether you're simply just sent to the past, there's definitely some relation there. And they don't keep most of these a secret, right? Like Professor Rowan and Professor Kamado. I think that was actually just confirmed by Pokemon. It's very clear that Kamado and Rowan have such similar features. They look so similar. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The next one is Cyllene and Cyrus. And I found it so interesting that just because these people are related to each other doesn't mean they have similar personalities or similar objectives or similar goals, right? Cyllene ends up being kind of like a really helpful person in your journey in Arceus. And even though she has like a stern personality, she's not evil by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, Cyrus is one of the evil villains of the Pokemon franchise. So I find that to be quite interesting and contrasting between the two. Then we look at Professor Laventon, who is a very interesting piece of this puzzle here. He mentions that he's from the Galar region a couple times. He kind of looks like a few characters that we know in the past. He makes a ton of British references, and obviously Galar is based on England. And it just so happens that he has the name Leon spelled out in his name, L-E-O-N, as in Laventon. It's very likely that there's some sort of ancestry between Laventon and Hop and Leon from the Galar region. I think that there's no doubt, in my opinion, that there's some sort of a relationship there. It's kind of a little bit of a stretch, but I think when you kind of look at their facial features and kind of how these characters are designed and all the little references he does, how he smiles kind of like Hop does, I mean, there's a lot of relationship there. So I definitely think that Professor Laventon has some sort of tie to Hop and Leon from the Galar region, which I think is pretty cool. Then we look at some of the other characters like Arezu. Arezu has some sort of tie to Mars, right? Like they have a lot of the similar outfit styles and hair colors and things like that. And that's kind of a lot of the give and take from a lot of these characters and how we can kind of tie them together. But Arezu and Mars, maybe Silver too, right? Like you can maybe make an argument from Silver having the same color hair and things like that. But I definitely think there's a relationship to Mars. Probably the most interesting one is Volo, and obviously Volo, a pretty key member of the story. It seems as though that he has some sort of a relationship to Cynthia, and I feel like Volo was presented in a similar way to Cynthia. I don't want to spoil the story too much, but I do feel like there's got to be a tie in there, and I think if you played the game, you see that there's some interesting things that take place, and obviously his team has a lot of similarities to what Cynthia has, right? Like the dude has a Togepi, which evolves into Togekiss. He has a lot of the same Pokemon. It's pretty clear that Volo and Cynthia have some sort of tie together. Then there's the question of Cogita and Cynthia, and Volo and Cogita, and there's some interesting kind of things where maybe Volo and Cogita have some sort of tie together. He calls her his mistress, so there's some interesting text in the game that kind of ties Cogita and Volo together, obviously, but then that makes us wonder if Cogita and Cynthia have some sort of a relationship, which I think that they probably do. I think there's still a lot to uncover about Cogita, and perhaps the DLC will ultimately do that. Adaman is an interesting one, obviously the leader of the Diamond Clan. There's a potential situation where he's related to Gordy, which was a gym leader from the Galar region as well. He had the rock type gym, and that would mean that they're related to Melanie too, because Melanie was Gordy's mom. So maybe there is some sort of tie in there, but they have the similar hair, but they have some animations and they have some similar kind of like attributes about them. And then when you look at their kind of official art, they're very similar to how Adaman poses and stuff. So it's possible that there's some sort of a tie-in there. Then we look at Iskon and his relationship to potentially Marlin or Nessa, or maybe both. They obviously all have the affinity to water type Pokemon. They have kind of the hair color, the blue hair color, and their skin color is very similar. So I do feel like there's a potential there. Looking at Ginter, one of the Ginkgo Guild members, there's definitely a tie into Volkner. I think there was no doubt about this one. Ginter is like hunched over in the same exact pose as Volkner is. They don't make this like a secret, right? I think there's definitely a tie in there between Ginter and Volkner. Then another one that you may not have caught is Colza and Gardenia, obviously the gym leader in Sinnoh with the grass type Pokemon. Funny that Golza is in Jubilife and like tending to the gardens and things like that. And of course Gardenia ends up being a grass type gym leader. Then there's gotta be something with Garrick, right? There's a potential for Wolfric or Bryson. Both Garrick and Wolfric have the same quote upon defeat. Outstanding, I'm tough as an iceberg, but you smash me through and through. They obviously both have the same ice type Pokemon. Bryson has the same hair color, so there's definitely some sort of a tie-in with Garrick and Wolfric or Bryson. I tend to think that it's potentially Wolfric, but who knows? But I think that that's interesting. Some people are saying that it could be Crasher Wake because of the big like fact that Crasher Wake has like this super enthusiastic approach to his like workouts and things like that, and obviously Garrick is like very fit and focused on that, so I think there's some interesting points to that, but Garrick definitely has some sort of ancestry here. Then we see Sanqua, which might be someone that you maybe kind of missed, but I think a lot of people are tying Sanqua to Karen. I guess you can argue Claire because there's a side quest that has you look for a Pichu in her house, and you can look in her closet and there's a small suit with a cape, so maybe there's a tie into Claire there, but I think Karen is like kind of a no-doubter on that one. And then you've got Peselle, or, you know, some people are saying that this could be the Pokemon Center lady or Nurse Joy. Some people are saying it could be Mira, which is interesting. So, but I guess there's a quest in the game where you help her with a Quarogunk, and she mentions wanting to make like a Poke Center. So I think there could be definitely a tie in there with Peselle and Mira. Then we look at the Misfortune trio, and I feel like this one's pretty obvious. Charm is definitely related to Bertha or Agatha. She mentions in the game that she came from Kanto. She uses Gengar and Rhydon, which are ghost and ground types. There's definitely some pretty clear relationship there to either Bertha or Agatha or both. And it seems they have similar hairstyles. There's obviously theories that Agatha and Bertha might be related as well, and that would all tie into this. So Charm definitely has some tie in there. Coin is definitely related to Saturn. Both use Toxicroak, so that's pretty obvious. And Clover is very much so tied to Candace, which is the ice type gym leader in Sinnoh. They both use their Abomasnow. So again, they don't keep many of these secrets, right? Like a lot of them are very obvious. I think Anth, the kind of person in town, is related to Darok. Darok is a Battle Frontier brand, if I'm not mistaken, and they obviously have very similar kind of styles and facial features. Sabi, the kind of protector of Hisui and Braviary, is definitely related to either Cheryl or Hapu. They both have the hair, the eyes, the oversized hats. They're both small. They take care of big Pokemon. Maybe there's a relationship to Sabrina because of the clairvoyance and the ability to kind of like, you know, have psychic powers. There's a little bit of a green tinge sometimes to Sabrina's hair. So maybe there's a tie to Sabrina, but I would definitely put my money on Cheryl or Hapu. Then you've got Benny. I want to say that this is a bit of a story spoiler, but at the end of the game, Benny says that he's going to move soon to another region. Ultimately, like, it's very possible that Benny is related to Wally, and there's some sort of tie-ins there, and he actually moved to the Hoenn region, and that's kind of how Wally became an ancestor. And then a few other ones that I think are pretty obvious. Zissou is definitely related to Buck or Flint. You've got Mai, definitely related to Marley. Lian, of course, the protector of Cleaver, is super related to Clay. It's very possible that Choi is related to Charon. And then you've got Riley and Rai. I mean, they have their Lucarios. I feel like there's definitely a pretty obvious situation there. So, and then there's always the situation with Ingo. I feel like Ingo is a super unique character in this game. Again, try not to spoil too much for those who haven't seen it, but Ingo is, I mean, how does he just show up? I have no idea what's going on there. I think there's definitely some interesting stuff going on with Ingo. So as I said, I thought it was really cool and unique that Pokemon decided to tie in these characters that we know and love from the franchise and like kind of give us their ancestry, which I thought was, like I said, I was just one of the coolest things. I thought I'd point out a bunch of them. If you feel that there was any that I missed or any that you disagree with, feel free to use the comment section below to discuss, and be sure to like the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and that's gonna be that for me, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.